torture. It's the thing that happens to Mel Gibson in all his movies.
This little piggy stayed home.
Wow, that is awful. Although, I will say, the past decade of Mel Gibson's life has made those clips slightly more enjoyable to watch. Sadly, torture is not just something that happens to Mel Gibson. It's also been practiced by the United States, as President Obama admitted last summer in a bizarre manner.
In the immediate aftermath of 9/11, we did some things that were wrong. We did a whole lot of things that were right, but we tortured some folks.
That's a weird way to phrase that. You sound like you're quoting a horrifying Andy Griffith episode. You see, Opie, things got a little out of hand down at the jailhouse, and Barney and I, well, we tortured some folks. We tortured those folks good, Ope. The president's comments were triggered by the Senate Intelligence Committee's massive 6,700-page report on the CIA's detention and interrogation program. The full report remains classified, but a 500-page summary was released in December. And it's even actually available on Amazon, and you should get a copy, especially if you're looking for a truly terrible book club pick, because this has got to be right up there with a lawnmower repair manual or Bill Cosby's memoir, Time Flies. You know when time really flies? When you lose consciousness for 3 hours and wake up in Bill Cosby's limo. But that's not the point. That's not the point. The point is, clearly, most people have not read this summary. That's not particularly shocking. What is shocking is that many of those actually involved in the programs, even former director of the CIA, Porter Goss, have not read it either.
I have not read a word of the report. I have not read a word of any of this stuff.
How have you not read it? You're f***ing in it 81 times. Spoiler alerts, by the way. Sorry, spoiler alerts. You can do it, though. Just knock out a chapter a night. And if you can't find the time to sit down and read it, don't worry. We've made an audiobook version with Academy Award-winning actress Helen Mirren reading the report for you. And I'm not kidding about that. She did it for us. Take a listen.
The CIA placed individuals with no applicable experience or training in senior detention and interrogation roles. Yes,
that's the actual Helen Mirren reading the report that you should have already read for you, Porter Goss. So put it on in your car and f***ing listen to it. And look, I know no one wants to read this or talk about what's in it. But there are a few things in here that we all should really grapple with, because as a recent poll revealed, a lot of us may have some dangerous misconceptions about torture.
69% of Americans told us they consider waterboarding to be torture, but nearly half, 49%, said such tactics are sometimes justified. And more than half, 57%, said these interrogation techniques often or sometimes provide reliable information that can help prevent terror attacks.
57% of us are confident that torture works. That is a lot. According to one poll, only 46% of Americans are confident in the Big Bang Theory. Which is crazy, because that is literally explained to us every week in the opening credits of the Big Bang Theory. And sadly, there is no sitcom theme that explains torture to us, at least not since they cancelled Two Guys, a Girl and a Black Site Prison. And if you're thinking, why are we talking about this now? Didn't we pass a law banning all those enhanced interrogation techniques? Well, it turns out, no, we didn't. We checked, and the only restrictions put in place were by an executive order President Obama signed in 2009 requiring interrogations to follow the Army Field Manual. And that's it. And executive orders can be instantly overturned as soon as a president leaves office. And think about that. That means President Lindsey Graham could undo that on his first day in office. And to be honest, that just seemed like a nice thing to do for him. He can put that image in a frame and he can look at it while he's not being president for the rest of his life. But let's look at the report together, because it challenges a lot of the assumptions in that poll. First, we did a lot more than just waterboarding.
We learned that one CIA officer played Russian roulette with a detainee, while another threatened a detainee with a gun and a power drill. We learned at least 5 detainees were subjected to so-called rectal rehydration, or feeding through the rectum with no medical necessity.
Yes, forced rectal rehydration. And the details of that in a footnote of this report are so graphic, not even Helen Mirren can make them sound appealing.
Majid Khan's lunch tray, consisting of hummus, pasta with sauce, nuts and raisins, was pureed and rectally infused.
Just try not to think about that the next time you eat hummus. In fact, I feel like I should preemptively apologise to the Sabra hummus brand, because your sales are about to drop quite noticeably. And it doesn't stop there. The report also cites the tragic case of Gul Rahman, a completely innocent man picked up in a case of mistaken identity who was shackled to the wall of his cell and later found dead, likely from hypothermia. And at this point, we could all probably do with hearing Helen Mirren reading something a little more pleasant. Maybe some Beatrix Potter.
Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries.
Oh, thank you, Helen. That's so much nicer. Please, tell me more about the bunnies.
But while Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail were on their way to pick blackberries, Peter was chained to a wall in Farmer McGregor's basement. He'd been badly beaten, and a tray of carrots and raisins was pureed and rectally infused.
Helen Mirren, I'm going to say what everyone has thought about you for years. You're a monster. And look, you may think, as 57% of you evidently do, that at least those tough techniques provided us with reliable intelligence. Well, not so much.
The report's most damning conclusion is that the tactics were ineffective, despite the CIA's claim that 20 detainees subjected to them shared crucial information, some of which led to Osama bin Laden.
Our staff reviewed every one of the 20 cases, and not a single case holds up.
Yeah, torture is one of those things that is advertised as something that works but doesn't. Like a Ford truck, or those weird bottles of horny goat weed available at your local bodega. But maybe the reason that so many of us innately believe that torture works is because it does, on TV, all the time. Look at 24. Jack Bauer repeatedly saved American lives while behaving like this.
You're gonna tell me what I want to know, or you're gonna start losing your fingers one by one. Where is the nerve gas?
You are gonna tell me what is happening at 8 o'clock! No!
You probably don't think that I could force this towel down your throat. But trust me, I can.
Emmy for Best Drama 2006. Beat The Sopranos. Great show. And look, torture works on 24 and in movies because it has to. It's a dramatic device to move the plot along. But ask terror experts and they'll tell you it's one of those movie tropes that's got no basis in real life. Like a wedding being interrupted, or someone this handsome feeling sad, or this character being part Asian. It works because they just says it does and we're supposed to take it. And yet, even supposedly smart people like Antonin Scalia, an ill-tempered bullfrog in a robe, they cite 24 as evidence that torture could be justified. He said Jack Bauer saved Los Angeles. He saved hundreds of thousands of lives. Is any jury going to convict Jack Bauer? I don't think so. And look, Justice Scalia, just because Kiefer Sutherland does something on camera does not mean it's a great idea. Unless, of course, that thing is him drunkenly running into a Christmas tree.
That would explain everything.
Yes. On December 25th, we should no longer celebrate the birth of Christ. We should celebrate that. And look, it's clearly not all 24's fault. Some people continue to insist that our tactics saved lives, citing 2 particular cases.
Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and Abu Zubaydah provided the overwhelming majority of reports on al-Qaeda. Both of them were uncooperative at first. The application of enhanced interrogation techniques, specifically waterboarding, especially in the case of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, is what really persuaded him he needed to cooperate.
And look, I know what you're thinking. That is a reasonable statement from a famously reasonable man. But let's just look at those 2 examples. First, Abu Zubaydah. The CIA have claimed that subjecting him to enhanced interrogation disrupted 2 plots. But it turns out he disclosed those plots before he was waterboarded. And the report now tells us that they were judged to be infeasible, those plots. And in one case, hilariously infeasible, because it concerned 2 would-be terrorists who had, and this is true, proposed a plot based on a satirical internet article entitled How to Make an H-Bomb, which instructed people to enrich uranium by placing it in a bucket, attaching it to a 6-foot rope and swinging it around your head as fast as possible for 45 minutes. And we all know that is not how to make an H-bomb. That is the brewing process for Bud Light Lime. That's a fact. That's just a scientific fact. It's how they do it. Now, as for Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, he did give us information after he was waterboarded. That's true. But it's worth noting the quality of that information.
He told investigators that he had sent Abu Issa al-Britani to Montana to recruit African-American Muslim converts.
The FBI scrambles, launches a massive investigation in Montana trying to find these supposed black al-Qaeda operatives.
But the FBI found nothing. KSM was lying.
Yeah, of course he was lying. What part of the phrase recruiting African-American Muslims in Montana did not make you call bullshit instantly? Even this week, we've learned that the most famous black person from Montana may actually be white. And look, none of this is to say that we don't need information from detainees. But if you want to see how to get it without torture, just watch a former FBI agent, Jack Clunan, who worked in the Bin Laden unit, show you how it's done.
You want to be able to build a rapport with somebody. You are their salvation. Because their life as they know it is over. Is there something I can do for your kids? Are you concerned about them? You want them educated? I'll get them educated. What do you want? Tell me what you want. Script for me your exit strategy. How do you extricate yourself from this terrible situation, by the way, that you put yourself in? Now, you can't go back home, can you? No, so let's make peace with that. Let me help you find this strategy to give you a life.
Holy shit! I would tell that man any of my secrets. The fun name I have for my glasses is Fixie McPeepers. I once tried to bleach my anus with Crest white strips. Every day at 2 p.m. I cheer myself up by silently eating 4 marshmallows from a bag at my desk, and I call it a marshmallow party. Please stop looking at me! I'll tell you anything! So look, there is no proof that torture does any good, but there is real proof that it does serious harm to America's image overseas. References to American torture show up everywhere, from terrorist recruiting tools to statements from North Korea, who've called our techniques brutal medieval. And the most insulting thing about that is that, knowing them, they probably meant it as a compliment. And the problem is, the rules we have on the books to stop us from returning to the dark days of torture are in one easily reversible executive order. Now, as it happens, John McCain and Dianne Feinstein have proposed an amendment due up for a vote next week, which puts the most basic parts of the president's executive order into actual law. And we should pass that, because if we don't, there is no guarantee that the next president will uphold the ban. In fact, we asked all 14 declared candidates whether they would consider overturning the president's order, and only 4 of them told us definitively that they would definitely keep it in place. As for the rest, they either ignored us or avoided answering directly, which is very frustrating because we need that information badly from them, and the problem is we can't torture them to get it because, as this report more than proves, that doesn't fucking work. And look, here's the thing. If enhanced interrogation were not torture, which it is, and even if torture did work, which it doesn't, America should not be a country that tortures people because it is brutal, it is medieval, and it is beneath us. And when the rest of the world thinks about America, they should not think of this, because that's not what this country's about. They should be thinking about this.
That would explain everything.
Yes. There is nothing more American than a drunk man jumping into a Christmas tree.